Good evening. Welcome to Northbeat. I'm Megan Roberts. We begin in the Yukon, where the Selkirk First Nation is taking charge of an abandoned mine on its territory. Yesterday, the Yukon Supreme Court approved a bid by the First Nation for the Minto mine. The mine has been in receivership, and up until now, the mine's receiver failed to find a buyer for the site, which was abandoned by its owners last summer. Virginie Anne has the latest.
This is a first in Yukon history. A First Nation is securing control of a mine site on its traditional territory. Selkirk First Nation Chief Sharon Nelson called the acquisition a monumental step for her people. But the latest development in the Minto mine saga is also somewhat unexpected, especially at a time that another First Nation in the Yukon is calling for a halt on all mining activity on their land. Back in May, the Yukon Supreme Court had closed the door to the sale process of Minto mine. At the time, Chief Justice Susan Duncan said there was no money to fund a new sale attempt. She instead authorized PricewaterhouseCoopers, the mine receiver, to plan an auction and sell off the mine's assets. But on Thursday, Duncan approved the first of two transactions that could finalize a deal with Selkirk First Nation. The court heard that the auction was delayed over the summer. In the meantime, the First Nation on whose settlement land the mine sits on made a private offer. It has been approved to purchase all mine facilities and some equipment. It's still negotiating the purchase of the mineral claims, permits, and licenses. If successful, the First Nation plans to explore whether the mine could restart. And the First Nation made it clear the goal is to prevent permanent closure of the mine site. And as for the purchase price, it remains confidential until all transactions are finalized. Virginie Anne, CBC News, Whitehorse.
Another Yukon First Nation is calling a state of emergency over drug-related deaths. Cheryl Kawaja has the latest.
The Kwanlin First Nation is the latest to call a state of emergency. It comes after numerous members of the community have died from overdoses.
KDFN is declaring a substance use.
Chief Sean Smith says the crisis touches everyone.
Those impacts to our families, I lost a niece this past winter.
He says elders have been calling for action.
And our elders are very, very tired of putting our young people away when they should be doing that for us. We have too many drug dealers in the Yukon. We don't have enough resources to help the people who are addicted. There are many, many people who are addicted.
An email from Chief Coroner Heather Jones to CBC confirms so far this year there have been 8 deaths in the territory from toxic illicit drugs. 7 of those were First Nation citizen, and 7 of those deaths occurred in Whitehorse. The territory itself declared a state of emergency over toxic drugs 2 years ago. Since then, other First Nations have followed suit.
In terms of declaring an emergency, we know that there's resources at the territorial level as well as the federal level.
Kwanlin Dunn hopes that will help with access to treatment services, public safety, aftercare support, and working with the community to find other short and long-term solutions. Chief Sean Smith says, above all, it's important to treat the community and this emergency in a non-judgmental way. Cheryl Kawaja, CBC News, Whitehorse.
A Yukon judge has struck down a part of the Safer Communities and Neighborhoods Act, or SCAN. SCAN is meant to address community safety concerns without police or criminal courts. But one section allowed for people to be evicted from properties with as little as 5 days' notice. Jackie Hong reports.
Yukon Supreme Court Chief Justice Suzanne Duncan ruled the section was unfair and overbroad, to the point it violated the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Whitehorse woman Celia Wright filed a constitutional challenge of the section in December 2020. That was after her rental property was the subject of drug trafficking complaints that resulted in a SCAN eviction notice. Wright lived with her 8 children, her partner, and her partner's elderly mother. They were all given 5 days to leave.
She advises me of what's going on, and when I take a look at that, I reach a conclusion almost immediate that this draconian law, this draconian power is unconstitutional. It struck me immediately as being unconstitutional.
In her decision, Duncan noted there was no suggestion the children or partner's mother were involved in the alleged trafficking. However, they were still subject to the eviction. Wright also wasn't provided any evidence collected against her by SCAN investigators to justify the eviction, and the eviction appeal process was not clearly communicated. Duncan's decision means people can no longer be swiftly evicted under SCAN. Jackie Hong, CBC News, Whitehorse.
It's been 1 week since the only grocery store in Whale Cove, Nunavut burned down. The loss created uncertainty in the fly-in only community. And while there's a long road ahead to rebuild, community members are well stocked with donations. TJ Deere has that story.
The story of the destruction of Whale Cove's only grocery store to fire last week is one of resilience. On that tragic day, it was uncertain what the community would do for food and necessary supplies, but it wasn't long before that question was answered. Organizations, residents, and neighboring communities pulled in to help. An armada of ships from Rankin Inlet ferried in supplies. The government, Inuit organizations, and private businesses all jumped into action. Comair helped by mobilizing 4 planes carrying 65,000 pounds of supplies and 4 more freighters to bring in fridges, freezers, and office equipment. Those supplies helped stock a temporary store set up at Whale Cove's Community Hall. A new store isn't expected to begin construction until the next sealift season, but until then, work has been done to provide the community with stability. Whale Cove is still under a state of emergency, but things today seem less dire than they did a week ago. TJ Deere, CBC News, Iqaluit.
Yukon businessman and broadcasting legend Rolf Hogan has died. Close family friends confirmed the news on Thursday. Born in 1928, Hogan got his start in business running a department store in downtown Whitehorse. Later, he was credited with bringing cable TV to the north and for the first cable system in Canada to provide local news. He opened CKRW Radio in 1969.
I think his legacy will, and I think you can still see it, I think his legacy is just making Yukon stand out, even in a wonderful nation like Canada. I think what Rolf will always bring to the territory is the fact that we can do it on our own, and we do it differently, and we do it well.
After retirement, Hogan dedicated his time to philanthropy and community history. He was 95. It's been a busy time for Delaney and Montana Prisnick. The sisters operate a business called Copper Caribou. Through it, they make jewelry and art using materials like porcupine quills, caribou antlers, and different animal hides. Copper Caribou recently attended the Santa Fe Indian Market, considered the largest showcase of First Nations art and culture in the world. Now, the sisters are back home, and their focus turned to another aspect of their community, their hide camp. The CBC's George Moratis stopped by the camp south of Whitehorse to meet the sisters and learn more about their work.
Where are we?
We're at Copper Caribou Hide Camp.
What is Copper Caribou?
Copper Caribou is run by myself, Montana Prisnick, and my sister Delaney. We're co-owners. We make artwork and jewelry, and we also run hide tanning programming.
This is quite the property. Can you talk about what it is exactly?
This is our hide camp that we started in late 2020. It was a project that we've been working towards for quite a long time, and it really, when COVID hit, it was the time to do it, to build it, and to have a space where we could have people come and tan hides and just hang by the fire if they wanted to. It's been a really great healing place for our family and friends. But yeah, we built Jaguanita, the hot house. We've got some hide tanning stations. We've got the fire area.
And this is home. Like, it's not just Copper Caribou's home. This is like where you grew up.
Yeah. So behind us is our parents' house, and we all grew up out here. And this area was Dad's dog yard, so he had his dog sled team. In the 90s, he had his dog sled team down here, so we repurposed the space, cleaned up all the dog houses, and now it's hide camp.
So here's where we actually work on the hides from start to almost finish with all the different ways you can work a hide. So yeah, a fresh moose hide would go up on those poles and start cutting hair.
What's it like to do this with your sister? Like, this is your job. What's that like?
Well, it's pretty special. Yeah, it's we definitely have had a good relationship through most of our lives, so it makes it easier to spend time and work together. We are very good friends as well, and it's just really special to share this journey of hide tanning with Montana as well, because it is something that we both wanted to do for so long, and at the time when it presented itself in our lives, we were at a point where we needed something grounding, and so it was the start of our own healing journeys as well. So it's really special to have that relationship to hides and each other.
We're going to tan it for leather, and then half of it will go to the elder that donated it. So his family will use it however they want to, and then the other half we will use for artwork, or if there's some really nice big pieces, maybe some clothing would be really cool.
What's your like your favorite memory or something that you made with your hands from a hide that you still use today? A piece of clothing or piece of art that hangs somewhere special? Is there one piece of hide that is particularly important to you?
We have our first caribou that we tanned. We've made some pieces out of that. I have a pair of earrings that I have kept, and I'm not sure that I'm gonna put on the market to sell. so far, those ones for me. Yeah.
Yeah, that first caribou hide was really special because anybody who tans hides knows that it's not a quick process and you have to be patient, and sometimes it takes years to finish your first hide. So when you do it, that's it's a meaningful piece of skin. Yeah.
What an incredible looking camp. A gathering in Inuvik has participants in stitches, laughing and sharing stories while learning traditional skills. It's all part of the Do Your Best Bead, Berry, and Wellness Gathering. Master seamstresses from across the Northwest Territories are on hand, sharing their expertise and, of course, keeping the atmosphere lively. The CBC's Des Loreen met up with them.
Okay, this is silver fox. This is the size of it. So every day you learn something new. I just learned this morning that you wet the skin of the fox and then you stretch it out and put it on the board.
We're helping with the gathering. It just means try your best. And we're sewing moccasins, learning how to pleat and put them together, sealskin mitts, and I'm here to assist the moccasin makers.
And my cousin's persevering with her pleating, not giving up.
I just want to thank Denise for inviting me and all the ladies for being here and making it so much fun.
And I just almost could lose my breath because it's so beautiful. When she pleats moccasins, it's like perfect. And I always used to say to myself when I see this on Facebook, oh, if only I could ever be in her presence and she could teach me. And guess what? I'm sitting here in front of her and this morning, and she was teaching me how she makes this pattern fit to a foot. And it's like I manifested this, and I'm like, whoa, is this for real?
To make for Brandon. I think there's been a lot of emotion through this whole thing with a lot of the women who have either lost their mothers or lost their teaching throughout, change of culture or residential schools.
You just sew it on like that?
Just wrote some proposals and got some funding. I would like to thank our funders, Horiseda, ICHR, GTC, and the Nitat Gwich'in Council also.
My spirit is so full, like just getting everything from from so many different people and stories from our ancestors, and it's just like so beautiful and it's so fulfilling.
Oh, imagine how good the TV's gonna look now.
And spoiler alert.
No! Don't panic.
Don't panic.
Cut to. Well, we're not cutting to.
What do ladies want to watch?
Look out! It's drama.
Oh, I'm ready for it.
Saul, toast is burning.
Toast is not.
Every time she has a seizure, she smells something burning. Now, if we can provoke that smell by probing the surface of the brain, we'll find the source of the seizures. Mrs. Gold, do you feel anything?
I can see the most wonderful lights.
And now what do you feel?
Did you pour cold water on my hand, Dr. Penfield?
Now what?
Oh,
What is it, Mrs. Gold?
burnt toast. Dr. Penfield, I can smell burnt toast. Dr. Wilder Penfield. He cured my seizures and hundreds more. They say he drew the roadmap of the human brain. We just called him the greatest Canadian alive.
Breaking news that shapes your world with local CBC Radio 1 Live to connect us closer to home. It's news you can trust, delivered when you want, where you want, on the CBC News app. Download for free.
Some breaking news now for you. Yukon RCMP have just reported a single vehicle collision at kilometer 52 of the South Klondike Highway. The collision has closed both lanes of traffic. Only emergency vehicles are being allowed through. The incident occurred just before the Yukon Suspension Bridge, about 20 minutes north of the Alaska border. The closure is along the Klondike Road Relay race route. The first teams are set to start from Skagway, Alaska at 8 p.m. tonight. It's unclear if the accident will impact the race. Aggressive fire weather is expected today and tomorrow in the Dutcho and South Slave regions. NWT Fire says there will be strong winds from the south and west. They say the North Slave may also experience aggressive fire weather this weekend, and that could cause existing fires to grow and increased smoke levels. NWT Fire says there's also a chance of lightning, which could start new fires. Officials ask people to take all possible measures to prevent new fires. Travel on Highway 1, also not recommended, according to the GNWT's infrastructure roadmap. It could close with little to no notice because of that fire burning near the Alberta-NWT border. This weekend, the town of Fort Smith is hosting its inaugural Northern Whooping Crane Festival. The event celebrates the elusive whooping crane and highlights local conservation efforts. Carla Ulrich tells us more.
The festival is also the first collaborative initiative by the Tabacha Leadership Council. The council was formed in early 2024 by 4 community governments: Salt River First Nation, Smith's Landing First Nation, Fort Smith Métis Council, and the town of Fort Smith. They all agreed to work together on common goals.
This Northern Whooping Crane Festival was a huge priority for the Tabacha Leadership Council, and all of the leaders share a passion for this project, and we're thankfully able to move it forward.
Wilson says it's a great opportunity to see what Fort Smith can really do. It's also a first attempt at providing tourism opportunities around the cranes.
So we're promoting this festival to all community members, especially because it's the first of its kind. I see it as a huge opportunity for all organizations to test what guided experiences around the whooping cranes might actually look like. That's both the birds themselves and the land they live on.
Wilson says there is a huge potential for conservation and restorative tourism in Fort Smith, and that it could turn into something that both the community members and visitors from around the world can enjoy. The festival will have several events hosted by the community governments and other organizations. Emily Prescott is the event coordinator with Smith's Landing First Nation. She says she's excited for people to check out what they have organized.
We have a huge presence on Saturday. We have a guided medicine walk with Louis Bolio out at Fort Fitzgerald. And we just want to show the community how beautiful our land is out there.
Prescott says she hopes everyone can come out and enjoy the festival this weekend. She said the whooping crane is a keystone species vital to the ecosystem, and this festival is a reminder to protect them. Carla Ulrich, CBC News, Fort Smith.
A new hub is opening today in Cambridge Bay that elders can call home. The new space aims to revitalize the Inuit language and preserve traditional knowledge in a modern environment. Carl Cardinal takes us there.
Inuit language has dissipated drastically, and a group of elders is working to revitalize it with the help of a new facility. Previously, they had to rent space to host their cultural programs, but that's in the past. Emily Agulalik is the executive director of the Redemurd Heritage Society. She says that the main highlight of this project is the pride she sees from the elders.
They've, worked tremendously over the years of wanting a building where they're able to conduct and to do their cultural programming.
Brandon Griebel is the Kugalak project lead, and he says the goal is to get away from the square southern houses and bring back a more traditional design with contemporary materials.
We started from scratch we spent about a year talking to people in the community saying, what's failing you in your current homes, in your current architecture? So the blueprints for the new building were in Inuit before they were in English.
Angulalik says the space will offer the opportunity to carry on for generations to come.
Language does not stand alone to me. Language stands with culture. So having them intertwine is so crucial for one to learn and to take that and, strive.
The grand opening of the Kukalak Center is happening today. Community is invited to discover the newly constructed building. Carl Cardinal, CBC News, Iqaluit.
In Yellowknife, volunteers are stepping up to tackle hunger among students. They're assembling food kits for kids who might not have enough to eat when school meal programs pause for the weekend. Here's how the initiative is making a big impact in the community.
I'm Robin Coleman. I'm one of the coordinators with YK Cares. And today what we're doing is packing kits for the YK Cares program, and we're hoping to sell those kits this weekend at the Co-op grocery store. So what YK Cares is weekend food kits that are sent home with kids that would, for the weekend, that would regularly get food through the school.
Well, I know a lot of kids come to school without a lot of food and then they go home on weekends and it's the same situation. So this might see them over for the weekend. I know there's lots of kids in that situation, yeah. And yeah, they'll be better off if they can have food at home on the weekends too.
It's very heartening because I think when we initially were getting people to sign up, it was a little bit, it wasn't so many people. And so I really didn't know what we were going to get today. And I reached out to my pickleball friends, and so a couple of them have joined today. And I reached out to my yoga students at the Racket Club, and some of them have shown up today, and all kinds of other people. So it's very, Yellowknife always comes together. You just put it out there and you ask them, and they always respond. It's amazing.
So I think this is just scratching the surface. I don't even know, for me, growing up in Yellowknife, I guess I probably don't really know how many children in our school systems are actually going home hungry. And so I think it would be interesting to know more information on that. What? So today we're hoping to pack enough kits to get us through to support the program till the end of December. and we're hoping to sell all those kits this weekend.
You know, we always hear about how Yellowknifers are so willing to pitch in and do what is necessary, and this is a prime example of reaching out, even for people at the last minute who said, "Yay, I've got time, I can show up today." So it's very heartening.
There will be a RED event in Iqaluit tomorrow to honor missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. RED stands for Remember, Educate, Dedicate. The event is being organized by the Kudlit Nunavut Status of Women Council. It'll be held at the Nunata Sunakutang Museum in Iqaluit tomorrow afternoon. Inuit artists are asked to make something to express their grief and hope for missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls.
Understanding and remembering the woman, we love the families of our fellow Nunavummiut that lost their loved ones and to come together as one.
The event will be open to the public and broadcasted online for anyone who's not able to attend. We're just hours away from the start of the Klondike Road Relay. As we told you earlier, a collision has closed both lanes of traffic on the South Klondike Highway. It remains unclear if that closure will affect the race. According to the Klondike Road Relay Facebook page, it is in contact with emergency services about this single vehicle collision, and it will provide updates on the situation. Now, this is an international running race. It begins in Skagway, Alaska, and goes overnight. Runners travel up that South Klondike Highway through the mountains all the way to Whitehorse.
Got around 1,800 runners on 200 teams, most of which are leaving from Skagway in teams of 10, but we have a number of youth teams, walking teams, and running teams leaving from Carcross early on Saturday morning as well. The nighttime checkpoints are a ton of fun. There's a real party atmosphere. You know, we have lit vests. You can see everyone very clearly. It does get very dark. It does get very cold. But with your team there supporting you and basically coming into a party every couple hours, it's a lot of fun.